Welcome to Tumble Home, a sports network podcast coming to you live from Studio K. I am Eric, joined for the second week in a row remotely by Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hello. I believe I'm in Studio K.
I so want to be in Studio K. I am in Studio V, listening to the rain on the roof.
Yeah, it's certainly been a odd day here. Big flakes in the morning and now sort of big sleets. I think it's going to start just straight on raining here as well. At Studio K, it's good to be back covering the Tumble Tourney 2020.
Yes, the finest tournament that still stands. The only thing currently happening in the world, it seems, is the Tumble Tourney. And unfortunately, we are down to the finals. We'll be covering the last two rounds, both the Elite Eight and the Final Four. Still some surprises out there to cover. But it's going to be a sad, sad day when we have to wrap up this whole tournament. It has been an incredible few weeks of following this, especially considering the circumstances.
You know, I never thought I was going to get a job as a pandemic sports broadcaster, so I just wanted to give a shout out and a big thank you to TSN, Tumble Home Sports Network, all the fine folks working behind the scenes to help you get this coverage out. But it's been a lot of fun, even in strange times. It's been a welcome distraction and exciting to see how people vote out there.
Yeah.
And, it's sad to reach the championship round here, but I think we agreed before we hit record that we're going to give the voting for the championship a full week, which I think is important to give everybody time to think about it before they have to make their final decisions here.
Yeah, the last week of voting, we had the first three rounds of voting occurring from week to week, ending on a Saturday that people got used to. And then the last 2 weeks, when I set it up, I figured, well, there's going to be fewer games to vote on, so let's just shorten it. And I kind of bamboozled some people, and it seemed like they missed out on maybe voting because that Elite Eight round ended in like middle of the week on a Wednesday, and I was out in the field, and I didn't get an opportunity to hit people to that jive. So
I put a mild blast on the Instagram like Wednesday morning, just alerting that voting should be completed, but not everybody's on the Instagram.
That's true. If you're
and
not,
you can't put a link to it.
Right.
Not even a link in the bio.
Yeah, if you're not on the Instagram, you should get on there. Come on. There's very important things that are posted on our Instagram page. As always, we are sponsored by the fine folks on Patreon, which, I think I suggested maybe in the last show, things are just going to keep getting tougher and tougher out there for people. It's crazy. And to see that nobody has adjusted the amounts that they are willing to support us with is crazy and much appreciated. And, it's awesome. I can't believe it. So thank you very much for still being there. And we're not sponsored by a beer, at least on my end this week. I am...
What?
I'm boosting the immune system, my friend, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee.
Yes, that's one form of hydration, Aish.
You can be sponsored by a beer if you want.
Well, I am sponsored by coffee, but I have a special sponsorship to unveil. Hold on.
Well, unveil it.
Natalie was kind enough to make mimosas.
Oh, nice.
The bubbles, the juice.
You guys have champagne over there right now?
Yeah, we had a bottle of champagne in the pantry, and we decided to bust it out for the Final Four here.
Nice.
You know how many times you're going to really have a chance to celebrate a Tumble Tourney Final Four, especially the first ever?
Right.
So
yeah,
it's a special day here in Studio K, and shout out to all our thirsty friends and listeners today. Go ahead. Cheers, Eric.
Cheers, my good man. Maybe next week I'll get a hold of some champagne and we can cheers to the final.
Absolutely.
The champ and victor of Tumble Tourney 2020 won.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out who made it. I've heard some rumors, but I haven't myself actually looked at the results of the Final Four matchups. But none of my Final Four picks made it, and
Oh yeah.
I'm able to now reset my mind and really look at this championship matchup and figure out who I want to vote for, and then it'll be exciting to see. I think I know who the favorite is, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to vote that way or not yet. We'll see. We'll see how these results pan out.
Right, exactly. And we will get to the Final Four little competition that we held where people could send in their submissions for their predictions. And I did mention this on the last Reddit post that I made that there were no perfect Final Fours. There was
Right?
one.
Nobody had map.
There was one that came. I'll just talk about it right now because there were no
Yeah,
perfect
sure.
ones. The craziest part about this is so I said in the form, attach your email or not your email but your name so that we can shout out who you were. It was the one submission that came in that didn't have a name associated with.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they nailed. We'll get to the Final Four eventually, but they got all but one. They were one away from perfect Final Four, and it
Well,
wasn't.
yeah, maybe we should get to the results of the Elite Eight before I spoil any more.
Yeah, I think we should start with our friends in the field who have been following along on RBWCA. Again, huge thanks to everybody being involved on there and lending your deep analysis. I mean, this is the kind of content that you usually have to pay for. This is athletic. Subscription style paywall material that you are just getting for free because of these fine folks out in the field that have been following these teams all year that have a depth of knowledge and analysis that basically we are just translating to you. So a big thanks to everybody on RBWCA throughout this whole tournament in shedding light on some of these teams that we just didn't have the time to get to. So we're going to get to the Elite Eight coverage, give you the results of those matchups, and then we'll move on. Do you want to start? We are able to this week actually both read off of the analytics of RBWCA. Do you want to start with the 12-pointed upvotes for Hopalicious?
You got it, Eric. Hopalicious is bringing the an analytics here. No team MVP for Team Fishing Pole? How dare you, sirs? How can you ignore the fearless play of their point guard and team captain, Shimano St. Croix? Not to mention their 7'2" center, Fluger Fenwick. No one cleans the glass like him, and I include Windex in that statement. Also, keep an eye on their diaper dandy freshman shooting guard, Abu Garcia Mitchell. This is true. He is going to be a force in the coming years. Moving on, I would like to step up to the podium and make an official apology to Hydration H. Despite my ardent support for water filter Go Platypuses, I failed to uphold my Hydration H credentials when I voted for Sigurd Olsen. Had I known it would come down to one vote,
Oh, wow.
I would have thought differently. R.I.P. Nalgene's. My Totino's lack of the week is
Cha-chunk.
fishing pole over slapping the bag. Those fellas from Franzi are tough, but I expect Shimano to cast the ball smoothly to Fluger all game, and the fishing poles cruise to victory. Team coach G. Loomis Berkeley will be cutting down the fishing net and heading to the Final Four. Very good predictions, and I can see why you got 12 upvotes for that. Solid analysis. Thank you, Hopalicious. Friend of the show.
Thank you very much, Hopalicious. Yeah, I mean, we talked big time last week about Coach Bucksaw, but, G. Loomis Berkeley's been at it. He's got a few books out there. He's up there with, the greats when it comes to coaches.
I think he has probably coached more Final Four games than any other coach currently still active. Am I wrong? We'll have to fact check that, but I believe that's right. G. Loomis is as he said, a well-respected coach in the field.
Yeah, we'll have to get our fact checkers on that one. Bird Dogging It coming at us here with some hot analysis as well. What a week and what a tourney. Admittedly, this well-hydrated correspondent is a bit despondent, as unbiased coverage went out the window in favor of #WetFootNation. Alas, the show must go on. With the plucky platypuses driving a stake into the tents and the WA fishers gnawing a hole in Canoe Pack's defense, we're left with a strong field that includes many of the traditional blue water bloods. Upon analyzing previous results and reading between the contour lines, Kevlar canoes will continue their steady stroke progress forward, riding the stability of Min 2. Sigurd will catch his second wind, and this one-man band will defeat Sunspot and his whimsical troupe of Northern Lights. And slappin' a bag of wine will snap Fishin' Pole's ugly stick. The matchup of the week is clearly the ferocious Fishers versus Saw and their squad of silky boys. This analysis predicts the Fishers will rely on their MVP F13. Oh, Dark Horse, yeah, he's off the bench, that F13, and continue their mapped-out route to the Final Four. Side note, with Tadino Pro wet-footing home, there's no way people can ignore Sigurd's worthiness of the George. Compare him to the stacked lineup and exquisite coaching of the Saws, and you'll see what he's accomplished single-handedly is remarkable. Thanks very much.
It's not even close to a hot take. That's a solid take.
That is a solid take. It's like, it's once the lock is locked, then it's been dipped in like some kind of a wax to even force lock it even harder.
Yeah, some sort of epoxy.
Yes.
Lock poxy.
Lock poxy, wet cement, and then dipped in molten steel. Not enough to melt the lock. Moving on, do you want to read our, lots of deep, thoughtful analysis this week. Wow.
Oh, yeah. One of our top insiders is in with a take here, Jacob Backer, reporting from the field. First off, big thank you for working through all these unprecedented challenges and still delivering the great content of the tournament. You guys are keeping us all on the edges of our isolated seats. Well, thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
This week, the tournament continues symptoms-free with the Elite Eight in Ely and Grand Marais. Number 9 versus number 2, the Fisher Maps versus the Camp Saw. I'm very surprised to see Fisher Maps still competing when there are several other teams that can arguably say they're able to play the same game on both a larger and smaller scale. I believe Fisher fans are a diehard bunch inspired by a new doodle logo, and that's what's kept them around. However, there is no team that can truly replace Sven, the Silky Boys, and Coach Buck Saw. It's an easy pick for me this week. Saw. Number one, Sig Olsen versus the number 3, Northern Lights. Sig has had too many close calls the past couple of weeks. Northern Lights just defeated one of my personal Final Four favorites, the Rainflies. With momentum from a victory of that magnitude, I believe the solar spotlight is on the Vindleys this week, and we will see Sig self-quarantined at the Bucket of Blood this weekend.
Oh, no.
It's probably not the worst place to have to self-quarantine.
No, probably not.
I wish we could come to you live from the Bucket of Blood next week.
Yeah.
But not going to be able to make it over there.
Maybe next year.
Number 1, Bag of Wine versus number 2, Fishing Pole. It's been said that the proof is in the bag of wine. I think that every Franzia fan can attest to the loyalty that we sippers and slappers have for our favorite drink. Despite a lack of liquor in Grand Marais, this one is bound to get a little tipsy. Unfortunately, I see the Toolies teaming up with their fishermen brethren to cast a popular, albeit sometimes unused, piece of gear into the Final Four. Allow me to have a sip myself here.
No problem. I'm going to have a sip
I
as well.
Wet the whistle. I want to do this insider knowledge justice, Eric.
Yeah.
Finally, number 1, Kevlar Canoe versus number 7, Water Filter. Weight savings on the portage is key, but long ago, on the Boat Show episode, we learned that many Tumble Home fans personally own canoes other than Kevlar. I don't have anything clever to say or any puns for this one. I'm calling it like I see it, and I think people value campsite convenience over weight savings on the portage trail. For my Totino's lock of the week,
Whoa.
I'm calling the upset with Water Filter defeating Kevlar Canoe. Oh, I missed it. Cha-chunk.
He added the cha-chunk.
He had the cha-chunk in there. Sorry, Jacob. I didn't mean to preemptively cha-chunk that lock of the week. Bold call.
Very bold.
As bold as you can get going into the Final Four. Thank you, Jacob, for those insights.
Thank you very much. Ghost of Ed Abbey. Last summer, I met two grown men, both avid bottle and box wine drinkers and all around fun dudes, who had never heard of slapping the bag. I was dumbfounded.
As am
Yes,
I.
yeah, it seems like it's pretty universal, but there are still some people out there. Yes, there was some education that occurred. Doesn't bode well for Franzia's chances to make the next round now that they are finally facing some serious competition. So Ghost of Ed Abbey is suggesting that there might just be a little bit too much of an esoteric act of local colloquialism that goes on with the term slapping a bag of wine. I can see
It's
that.
yeah, it's truly possible. I hadn't really considered it myself, but I like the way you put it, Eric. I'm not going to try and best that description.
Fair enough.
Moving on, DJ Wilco, 5 days ago with 5 votes. Insider info. It's no secret that Slap in the Bag is the undisputed champion of party schools, and that the character of many of its alumni can only be generously described as that of ill repute. I would know. I graduated there summa cum laude. So it may come as no surprise that after this week's victory over Filet Knife, things got out of hand back at the hotel. My sources tell me that charges of malicious destruction of property, reckless endangerment, and indecent exposure are forthcoming. While suspensions and fines are a certainty, these will likely not affect the team until next season. However, don't be surprised if some players develop the brown bottle flu and signs of morning tremblies in warm-up.
Uh-oh.
This is troubling if true. While we all assume this slipshod band of boozy ballers is routinely juiced on the court, they seem to have reached peaks of lechery that I'm not sure even their colossal tolerance levels can overcome. Do I smell an upset by fishing pole? I believe I do.
Well put, DJ
Very
Wilco.
well put.
Yeah, there's only so many days in a row that you can get by with boozing on the court like that before things just fall apart.
I would say when we increase our writer's room budget, we may want to give this guy, our friend DJ Wilco, a call. That's some smooth, buttery language there.
That is very nice. Band of boozy ballers.
I feel better just having read that.
Yeah, no, exactly. That just rolls off the tongue. It's easy reading. This one isn't necessarily some analysis, but just for our future going forward next year, when the tournament does return here, we did get corrected that it's not pronounced Buke, it's pronounced Bike.
It is.
Yeah, I guess. So thank you, Pathan30.
We stand corrected.
Yeah.
Well, our apologies to everybody out there in Bike.
Yeah. Are you from Bike, Pathan, or are you just
traveled through that way once or twice?
Way. Yeah.
I've been through Bike. I guess I never heard anybody say it.
I guess I
just
haven't
saw
either.
The sign.
Yeah, well, nobody. Yeah, maybe on the sign they should put a correction just below it. Sounds like Bike.
That's a one bike town.
One bike town. All right.
I get the last one then from Ghost of Ed Abbey here.
Oh, there's another one from him? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we got update. Sig, slapping a bag, and Cam saw all go down in the Elite Eight. I guess that's some predictions there.
Yeah.
Let's get to the results.
The actual tournament behind me is being very unwieldy, so I'm just going to have to go over to the actual voting page. And let's start, as we always do, in the West with the matchup between Kevlar Canoe and Water Filter. There was some potential thoughts, albeit from just one person, but that there was maybe an upset here, and it would have been huge. Alas, no upset. Kevlar Canoe moves on relatively easily against Water Filter, 78-17. Our first contestant in the Final Four is Kevlar Canoe.
And the favorite moves on. No surprise there. I like the bold call, but to think that Canoe is going to be denied a Final Four trip, well, it was just too easy of a paddle for them. I don't think anybody got over 20 votes against the Kevlar Canoes through the rounds here.
I was going to say, I think that is one of the most remarkable runs to the Final Four I have ever seen. Starting in round one, their points against 5, 13, 19, 17.
Yes. Fact checked on the fly. That is correct.
That's
So
some strong
they've
D.
dominated the whole way. It's been a very smooth trip for the Kevlar canoes.
Moving down into the last two teams in the West for the last spot in the Final Four in the West. And that is the last remaining Cinderella, as it were. And that is the W.A. Fisher Maps versus Camp Saw. A disappointing season for the Silky Boys. Camp Bucksaw and the captain, Sven, going home. The Cinderella story moves on. W.A. Fisher, Maps 58, Camp Saw 36.
A pretty close matchup there. As expected, I thought Saw had it. I called them as my lock of the week, but I failed to dip it in the lock poxy, and it was
Lock
corrupted.
Poxy.
Yeah, I had a lot of comments on Instagram. I had posted a picture of a Saw with a Fisher canoe, a Fisher map. I would love to see a canoe made entirely of Fisher maps, some sort of paper mache model. But a lot of people on there are saying that you need the map. They would rather definitely Instagram was heavily skewed for mappies, not the saw. But I told a few people, and I said to somebody on Instagram, I said, you just got to trust and follow the map in your heart. But apparently that map in the heart is not very strong at navigation for some.
Yeah, up to a certain point.
The maps were valued a lot more than I thought they would be. But
it has been a remarkable run. Probably one of the least talked about teams. They've kind of been going about, what they're doing under the radar, really. Each week just continues to surprise, but we've been kind of throwing our weight behind a couple of the other teams in the tournament, specifically Team Saw, and they were no match. The closest matchup that the Fisher Maps have had came all the way back in round one. They squawk by. I believe that's the past tense of squeeze, right?
Accurate.
So, yeah, they squawk by Bic Lighter by just under 20 votes. And just think how things could have turned out if Bic Lighter would have moved on in that first round. Since then, W.A. Fisher has been more or less disposing of every team, doing away with Chuck Boostrom in the second round by close to 100 votes, Canoe Pack by close to 20 votes, and now the Saws, by a little bit over 20 votes as well. So they're getting the job done. They're moving on to the Final Four. I think it would be one of the wildest upsets in sports history, not only the Tumble Tourney, it's just generally sports history, if somehow the W.A. Fisher was able to upend and capsize the Kevlar canoes, as it were, in the Final Four to go to the finals. I don't see that happening, but I haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point, we're all just kind of making votes between things that you would definitely want on every trip. I mean, the earlier rounds, you could definitely say, well, I would never go on a trip without a map, but I could do without such and such. At this point, these are all key essential items that makes the voting a little bit more difficult. But I don't understand. I would like to have a nice campfire rather than to have a map. You can always find your way, but you can't always find good dry cedar to cut. And you're going to want a saw when you do. Just makes the entire point of camping that nighttime sit around the fire for me. But, good season for the Saws. And I did get to talk via Skype with Coach Bucksaw, and he was proud of his team and very gracious in defeat. He said, he hopes the Maps can really make a close match against the Canoes in the Final Four, and he wished them luck. So it was nice to see that.
Yeah, it's always nice when you get that those years of experience as a coach that you see in Bucksaw and G. Loomis. Those are a couple of guys that have been around.
They're
not
class acts.
Yeah, they're
not
going to be up there at the podium at the end of the day making excuses, and at the end of the day, they're still kids out there. So.
All right, I think that does a pretty nice job of wrapping up the West. What happened out there in the East in Grand Marais?
Yep. So we've got a Elite Eight matchup here. This is to go to the Final Four. And again, another team that has kind of been running under the radar. Although I think, as a 3 seed, it's never a time where you really miss out on them, or speak in language of Cinderella stories or magical runs or anything. But they just haven't had too much coverage on them the whole time. And I am speaking of the Northern Lights. They are moving on. Our last
Yes.
man remaining, Sig Olson, goes down 68-29. So we've got 3 of our 4 Final Four teams set. Northern
The
Lights.
splendor. Oh boy, the splendor was too much for old Sigurd Olson.
Yep.
And he actually agreed with the results. He said, "Yeah, there's no way I can. I personally can't hold up against the entirety of the Northern Lights." So he kind of just conceded at the end of that match.
Yeah. I mean, he voted for the Northern
He
Lights.
actually voted for the Vindleys. Yeah, he told me that.
Yeah. Yeah. His time's up.
What a tournament though for Sigurd though. He did. He really, he did the human conference proud.
Yeah,
for sure.
He sure did. You can only do so much as one person out there against a vast array of dancing colors. Down to the Party Boys slapping a bag of wine, going up against Fishing Pole, and we will see a 2 Fishing Pole versus Northern Lights Final Four matchup. The bags of wine go down. Franzia, the senior, no match. Actually, quite a bit of a match. Actually, the closest one of the Elite Eight, they only lost by 9, 53-42.
Wow, the only 1 versus 2 matchup we ended up getting in the end, and that was a game. I wish I had been at that one. I heard and I saw the highlights. It was an amazing matchup.
Yep.
Congratulations to the Fishing Poles. You know, I was out ice fishing for Splake the other day, and even I don't really think of an ice fishing pole as a fishing pole, but it was. So, yeah, I get it.
I get it, yeah.
I get it. I totally get it. And we had many rounds of wine bag, and now we're moving to the Final Four with a nice fishing pole. We still have a canoe in there. We have a map, and we have the Binleys. I mean, if that's our Final Four, I'm down.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful night. That's a beautiful night in the park.
Yeah, Final Four, Kevlar Canoe, WA Fisher Map, Northern Lights, and Fishing Pole. And like we were talking about at the beginning with the people making their predictions on the Final Four, I guess I'll go ahead and say that I'll trust you if you send me a message and say that this is you. But if I get a bunch of them, then we'll have to I don't know, scrap the whole thing. But there was one person, and it unfortunately was the one person who did not attach a name to their submission. They had Kevlar Canoe, WA Fisher, Sig Olson, and Fishing Pole. They had the map in the Final Four. They nailed the hardest one, and they were.
Can't you see who it was emailed from at least, or what?
No, that was part of the aspect.
It was just
of that
submitted
form.
through a form.
Yeah, it was just submitted through Google Form, and then there was no. I didn't want to collect emails.
That's certainly impressive. Yeah,
and it was one of the first ones that came in. So sometimes I think I don't even think I ever shut down that form submission thing. So if somebody really wanted to, they could have waited until like the last second and had a little bit of a better chance. But it was like the second one that got sent in, and to think that they were one, like Sig was actually just one round away too. So they were about as close as you can get to being 100% accurate, which would have been, I mean, pretty remarkable in the grand scheme of things, especially considering the 9 seed WA Fisher making it as far as it did. I think the vast majority of people had Kevlar Canoe in, with the second most voted one, or at least predicted, being Fishing Pole. After that, it was a lot of different third and fourth choices. But yeah, whoever you are, if you had 3 out of 4 and those sound familiar, send me an email or a message on Facebook. We'll do our best to get you some comeuppance for that incredible prediction.
Nostradamus over here.
Nostradamus.
We got a real Northwoods Nostradamus on our hands, Eric.
Yeah.
Who did you have in the Final Four? Do you recall?
Yeah, I had Kevlar Canoe, Slip Bobber Rig, Fishing Pole, and no, Slapping a Bag of Wine and Northern Lights. So I had Kevlar Canoe and Northern Lights.
So you
Correct.
got two.
I had two.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
I had zero.
Yep. I had my.
I had Cast Iron and Saw coming out of the West,
Mm.
a 2 and a 3 seed there, and then in the East I had the number 8 seed Muck Boots
Oh,
and up against the 3 Hammocks, and so I went over on them on those guesses. They're all pretty solid guesses, other than the Muck Boots, I guess. Gee whiz! I still
Yeah.
don't understand that one. I've had a few weeks to digest it, and it still isn't sitting right. I
Still.
still have worn my Muck Boots every single day since the first round, and I will continue to wear them because they're amazing. They're Muck Boots. I don't know. I just don't understand that at all. I don't think people even understand what they've done. But
Still don't understand what you've done.
I'm bamboozled by that one, and I also don't get how the Fisher maps have made it to the Final Four, but then somehow, in my opinion, a superior mapping product than Nat Geo didn't even make it out of the first round. So where was all these map lovers? They all just chose the Fisher over that one, and then refused to vote for the other, I guess.
It's a sexy pick. It's just, I don't know, something about those blue.
I had somebody in the Instagram comments like complaining about Mackenzie being like snubbed, and it's like, whatever, zoomy. Would you want me to zoom in as close as I can, Mackenzie?
You can go back.
They're pretty grating to look at, in my opinion, but I mean, teach their own.
Yeah, color scales aside, or color schemes aside, the scale is what doesn't do it for me. And we have a discussion on that, and we had 2 whole episodes on maps back last year where we discussed our favorites. And, so Nat Geo and Fisher made it into this year's tournament. One of my favorite maps, the Chrismar, one of my favorites, got bounced in the map semifinals. So, yeah, not everybody's favorite map's going to make it every year.
Yeah, usually the map conference does send 3 to the tournament, but this year only 2 had made it through, and that's just the way that the key tumbled there for them.
That's just the way the paper tears.
That's right. Anyhow, it is exciting to see them Fisher maps make it through. Oh yeah, map time.
Yep, that is pretty
cool. I don't
cool.
think they stand a chance, though. I don't think they stand a chance against Kevlar Canoe.
No, I don't either. I mean, it would be a miracle upon miracles. I would be shocked if Kevlar Canoe at this point didn't run the table. It's just, I think from Selection Sunday, it's almost been a foregone conclusion, but that's why you play the game. And
yeah, no, I will say that we obviously had already kind of known what had happened in the Elite Eight before we were recording today, because I wanted to vote in the Final Four matchups, so I had to look. But I have not looked at what happened in the Final Four. We did hear some whispers, but I'm still, as of right now, unspoiled as who actually wins between Kevlar Canoe and Map. I'm just saying it's my lock of the week.
That's your lock of the week? Yeah.
Kevlar Canoe, I would say, I'll just, they've been the favorite this whole time, Eric. And, the maps have had a magical run, but I think this is the end of that run. And the Canoe is going to paddle away into the sunset, but I expect it will be close. I'm going to say it's going to be within 20 points.
Well, the maps, whatever ends up happening, will get to hang a Final Four banner in their gym, the first of their legendary tenured career as a team that's always sniffing around, but this is their first Final Four. This isn't Kevlar Canoe's first trip, nor is it Northern Lights or Fishing Pole. Again, this is the first conglomeration of a tournament. You've got a splintered tournaments in the past, so it's kind of like an AFL, NFL situation. We're finally getting all the teams together in one grand, majestic, regal, if you will, tournament.
I believe it is regal. Yes.
Yeah. So I think we should move on to our back to some analysis from the field going forward. Moving on to the Final Four.
Hold on, we have a new sponsor for the Final Four, Eric.
Oh yeah. I'll get back onto the video here so I can see. Oh wow. Is that the one that we thawed?
No, I drank that one on the beach last weekend while I was agate bathing.
That's right.
But I was able to procure another 4-pack of Two Hearted Ales.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just follow that big fourth glass of coffee and a second mimosa with a nice two-hearted.
Well, I have an empty. Well, there's one more sip in here. Cheers.
Indeed.
Indeed. Yeah, let's move on. We've got some interesting analysis and conversation to start off the bat, which I just kind of started reading a little bit here. It's a little off topic in terms of direct analysis of the current tournament, but all started out here, which is very interesting, especially considering some of the comments that come after it. So Aldi1 starts by saying, I was thinking it would be fun to see which Tumble Home episode the listeners like best. Possibly a future voting thing you guys could do. Hashtag Harry Lake PMA Nash. That's a mouthful. Hashtag
PMA
Harry
Nash.
Lake PMA Nash.
Woo!
Yeah, it would also be a fun excuse to re-listen to old eps. Boy, oh boy, depending on how long this whole thing goes on, we could get another...
Yeah, you better watch what you're wishing for here.
Yeah, we might get a true Tumble tourney of Tumble episodes. We'd have to sit down and rank them. That almost seems like something somebody else should undertake. I think it would be weird for us to try to rank our episodes. But there are some comments that what would the top seeds be? The pros and cons of moving up north is a favorite. Epic River Routes episodes 2. 16 seeds would be anywhere a lot of dog sled talk takes place. Oh no. Oh no. There are some people that love those episodes, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, I'll put that up to the then there was one other
Diabetic squirrels.
Diabetic squirrels is a favorite. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, you guys, I'm
That's
sure
another idea. I mean, virtual tournaments are the wave of the future, so
That's true.
who knows? Maybe we just have to start like a side podcast where it's all virtual tournaments all the time.
There you go. What would that one be called?
I don't know. I don't think on that one for a little bit. Let me finish this beer.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Blow Zephyr. This is our Final Four coverage. Thank you, Blow Zephyr, for the thoughts. Kevlar Canoe is looking unstoppable heading into the Final Four after easily dispatching of the water filters and hydration niche. I don't think anyone expects anything other than a repeat performance against the WA Fishers, but as Confucius once said, none are more lost than he who paddles without a map. In the East, the Northern Lights have to be the favorite over the Ugly Sticks, and they might just have what it takes to upset the Kevlar dynasty, but only if they show up.
Yeah, that is true. Nobody has been talking about how we are currently living through a solar minimum right now. So this is unprecedented. The depth and
that's true.
The run that this team is making. This isn't your deep, solar maximum roster that we've seen in the past, where it's almost a shoo-in that they're going to make it to the Final Four with.
That's probably why they were a 3 seed.
Yeah,
it is. So if it, you never see them. They're usually a 1 seed when you're at Solar Max. Look back to the tournaments of the 2010, 2011 squads.
Oh yeah,
stacked. Oh boy, the splendor was off the charts with those teams.
Yeah, and
this team it's more of that glowing arc of a Northern Light. It's just out there. It always is there. You just have to adjust your eyes to see the splendor.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
It's one of those years, where you wouldn't think to see them, but I think at the end of the day, the roster is what it is, but it really does come down to coaching. And, we've talked about Buxaw and G. Loomis, but Christian Birkeland, he's been at the helm of Northern Lights for over 14 decades now. And, he's just the stability that keeps this team, regardless of what the roster is, showing up year to year. And here they are again with like we've been saying, a solar minimum team that I think, as suggested by Blow Zephyr, would be the only team that I think would stand a chance against the Kevlar dynasty.
Yeah, you mentioned Birkeland, a hell of a player. But another one that comes to mind this year is they got that youngster KP Index. KP, I don't remember what KP stands for off the top of my head. He's always just gone as KP. Yeah. But that kid could shoot the lights out. I mean that in every sense of the word. So that's
Literally.
we got a couple potential George candidates on that team that we
Yeah.
haven't really talked a whole lot about up until now.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where, you've got a tangible item versus something a little bit more untangible, and that's where you could maybe smell a little bit of an upset when it comes to the Kevlar canoes. I don't think that fishing pole would stand a chance against the Kevlar canoes if that was what the final ends up being. But we shall see. Moving down to Jacob Backer, one of the most consistent in the field analysts we've had throughout this whole tournament.
He's been on the beat. He's been on the beat a long time. He's a real pros pro, that Jacob Backer.
He's a real pros pro. He did unfortunately make his lock of the week last year for the upset, or not last year, but last week, with 7-seed Filter ousting Kevlar Canoe. That did not happen. But he is going to go ahead and give his analysis on the two remaining teams from the West and the East. Kevlar Canoe versus WA Fisher. Kevlar Canoe has easily hoisted themselves above every opponent they have met this far. In regard to Fisher Maps' latest victory over Campsaw, voter. There's a quote from Instagram that he's voter Sheets_Al is quoting on Instagram saying, "These days I wouldn't leave home without a silky boy, but I have taken many trips without a saw. Can't not bring a map." It did not occur to me that voters could be considering Fisher Map to be a more encompassing team, maybe a team more simply named Map. If this is true, it's easy to see how they have been able to navigate their way to the Final Four. However, I'm sticking with the specific Fisher brand. This week, I'm unfolding my Nat Geo and going with Kevlar Canoe as the Tumble Tourney West champion. All right, there you have it.
Smart pick.
In the East, Tumble Tourney East Championship. Northern Lights versus Fishing Pole. Northern Lights has personally shocked me with absolutely electrifying voter turnout against both Rainfly and Sig Olson. In the East Championship, I'm proud to say that they are my personal choice, but Fishing Pole's performance to date has been extremely consistent, backed by what I would consider the most loyal fan base of the tournament. Fishing Pole is now the last tool standing. This week, I see that sixth-man fan base reeling in the Tumble Tourney East Championship for Fishing Pole. Yeah, there are people love watching those Northern Lights, and they have a fan base that I think is unrivaled. Thank you for the analysis, Jacob Backer.
All right, next up, chiming in, is our good friend Bird Dogging It. The stage is set for what will surely be a Final Four for the ages. But before this correspondent carries on, let's all pour out some recently defeated bag of wine for our home, Sigurd. And what could be this last appearance in this tournament? Sig, the Super Senior, went out in style as it took a collection of charged particles to put an end to his dance. Yeah, the Northern Lights, they took on like any kind of opponent that was thrown at them. They defeated humans, they defeated gear. Looking back, they just had an impressive. It didn't really matter who they got matched up against. They just handled it.
Yeah.
Getting back to Bird Dogging its analysis. Getting to it, Fishing Pole has proven time and time again to have what it takes to reel in competition at the last second and persevere. It's hard to imagine them getting their eyelets back in the game in time for their cosmic matchup with Northern Lights. But you can't deny their craftsmanship, and I predict they'll weather Sunspot's hot hand and advance to the finals. In the other bracket, it's been reported that the Kevlar canoes are using some bulletin board material as added motivation after the WA Fisher Map stated in an interview, "What's the point in having a canoe if you don't know where you're going?" With that in mind, I predict the Kevlar canoes will tell the Fishers to get lost and easily advance to the final round against Fishing Pole.
Well, it seems like we've got most predictions going Kevlar Canoe versus Fishing Pole at this point.
Yeah, that's a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. I think they are the favorites in each matchup. Although I would point out that the Northern Lights had more votes to get into the Final Four than Fishing Pole. But again, it all goes back to the matchups there.
Yeah, exactly. Canoe _ my boy Siggy, sad face. But anything can happen in a long tournament. He made a good run. If you haven't read it, grab yourself a copy of The Singing Wilderness. Yeah, Of course. And if you haven't listened, we've got 3 full-blown episodes on the life and times of Sigurd Olsen, based on the book A Wilderness Within by David Backus. Just a
I
little plug
wonder
there
if I
for us.
can get a copy of The Singing Wilderness on the e-reader download from the library.
I have a
I haven't.
copy. I can.
Can
I'll
you
trade.
have a pigeon bring it over?
Yeah, I'll trade you. I'll swap my grocery list that I'm going to send with you tomorrow for the book. I'll leave it on your porch in a Ziploc bag.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you. I don't know how much more of the stand I can take.
Yeah, you going to give us a little stand recap at the end of the show here, or?
Of course I will be.
All right, great. Well, this
I have
last
a few, I
comment.
have a few things to get to after the tournament coverage today, Eric. I hope you don't have any plans this afternoon.
Yeah, I was definitely planning.
going out? You going for a
out,
walk?
Walking around in the gales from the northeast and rain. No, I have no plans.
Very good.
We'll just keep recording.
Sinister P-Trom. Where are the Mackenzie maps? Who in the hell prefers Fisher over Mackenzie?
Oh
well,
boy.
Well, I do. And then, oh yeah, and I think I already mentioned this. It's a little too zoomed in for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we have different kinds of maps. Everybody has their preferred zoom. We have a response right away though. Mackenzie are too zoomed in for practical field use. Yes, that was from Paddling on a Prayer, and Sinister P. Trom responds to that. I disagree. It's more zoomed in, but not that much more. Depending on your route, you may need to take one extra map. Some of the fishers aren't detailed enough. The portages are hard to find, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just I think we had somebody suggest maybe we just have map as a tournament entry, but no, that's why you have the map conference. It's one of the deepest conferences too, so it really is hard to get a bid out of that map conference. Maybe next year for the Mackenzies.
Yeah.
As I've said, also I honestly prefer the super zoomed out Nat Geo or the Arquetico map. The
Chrismar.
I can never remember the Chrismar name. I can always picture it, but I don't know why the name Chrismar always escapes me. Probably just because I don't get to use it a whole lot.
I know.
But, if I had my way, I think Nat Geo would be more deserving of a Final Four bid. They're my favorite map, but, I'm odd.
Well,
I think that's it. That's it for analysis on the Final Four?
Yeah, it is. It
didn't give them much time.
Well, it got posted really late. We'll put another final nail in the Tumble Tourney coffin and post another analysis of the finals for the majority of this next upcoming week with maybe final thoughts on the tournament with the final as well, and then maybe we can come next week to the table with some of our favorite moments, our pick for the George, things of that nature, highlights, recaps. But before we get to that, should we get to who's in the final?
Yeah, let's hear it. I would love to hear. I would love to hear the actual results and the vote totals.
Is it final or finals?
This is the finals. This is the Final Four, and then I would say then the last two is the championship.
Okay, so there you go.
Or
That's
the
better.
finale, but not
Finale?
the final. This isn't. Yeah, it's the finale.
Okay, so Kevlar Canoe going up against W.A. Fisher map. The Cinderella story is over. Everybody knew this was happening, and everybody nailed it. Kevlar Canoe moves on 85-27.
They did crack 20.
Yeah, they got the
Toughest.
The maps
The
put up the
toughest,
most points that Kevlar Canoe has seen thus far.
Yeah,
So-
but somehow their vote total went up though for the Final Four voting. I guess
Yeah, that is another,
somehow Kevlar Canoe got more votes to get to the championship than they did to get into the Final Four itself. This is the first we had been seeing the voting totals kind of decreasing round by round, but it looks like they increased for the Final Four despite the short voting window. Love it.
Yep.
Love to see the passion.
The passion is there, and the passion
Well,
of...
great season for the maps. Hashtag find your way and hashtag follow the map in your heart. But inspiring run for the Fishers on Fishers and congratulations to the Kevlar Canoes.
Yep. They're just
Uh,
kind of going through the motions this whole tournament. It's something to behold. It's kind of one of those things that, yeah, it's a little chalky. It's not always fun to see the number one overall seed make it to the championship, but that's they're there
it
for
is
a reason.
it is the Boundary Waters canoe area, and all the waters, all of the Hydration Ash have been expelled from the tournament, but the canoe stands strong.
Canoe stands strong.
85-27. And we're gonna get over the course of the next week time to do interviews with the people and coaching and equipment managers on the canoe squad. I can't wait to hear what they have to say about their run to the championship.
Yeah,
But
should
we'll save
be.
that for next week, I hope.
Yeah, it should be a fun week of interviews, media days leading up to the grand finale. We know Kevlar Canoe is going to be there. We're going to get some interesting conversations from that squad. But I am most interested in having a conversation about this team, who is, as we discussed before, coming into this tournament with a weaker roster than most years. And it will be in the finals Kevlar Canoe versus the Northern Lights. They win 64-46. The fishing poles, G. Loomis's squad, down for the count. Too many islets
Well,
lost in this battle of the sky and water. Northern Lights, I think, is the team that can stand a chance against the Kevlar Canoes, but it can't be said enough. What a run the fishing poles made. A little bit
absolutely
surprising. And
phenomenal work by the fishing poles. They casted up some smallmouth bass and some pike, and they trolled up a really nice lake trout along the way. It wasn't enough to overcome the splendor. Hashtag splendor. Hashtag Vindleys. And yeah, watch out for Christian Birkland and KP Index. Oh boy. I thought the fishing poles were gonna make it through there, but I think canoe versus Northern Lights is about a picture as I can paint in this insider's mind. I'm
yeah,
excited. I'm excited to dwell on this one because it's going to be a very tough choice for the voters. And the Final Four matchup here was within the 20 vote margin I had predicted. That was a close one.
yes, it
Fishing
was.
poles got a very good season for the fishing poles, but even in a low solar minimum year, the Vindleys are very tough.
Very tough indeed. And, you know, just
The
because
charged particles.
the
Mm.
charged particles, huge fan base out there, and they follow them. They have multiple Facebook groups, multiple websites, forecasting how they're going to be doing from year to year, even, day to day. You just don't see that kind of passion consistently when it comes to, Kevlar Canoes. They're a little bit more of a bandwagon team, boom or bust, but the Northern Lights have some of the more consistent fans, you see from any team, any year in this tournament. And it's, at the end of the day, looking at it now, it's really no surprise to see them in the championship. And, it is, yes, the Boundary Waters canoe area. So the canoe would make sense, but there's plenty of hiking opportunities that you can just walk out to a nice vista and see some northern lights as well. So,
True. I mean, the canoe is a regional tumble home phenomenon, central to the Boundary Waters Park and other, great paddling destinations. But what people, I think, are starting to realize, and maybe I was slow to pick this up, is that the Vindleys themselves are a worldwide phenomenon,
yeah,
and possibly honestly beyond. If we really consider their full scope of their particle charged powers.
yeah,
It's beyond the park. It's a much bigger thing. But this is a Boundary Waters tournament when you really get down to it.
it is. Yeah. So, there are multiple lines of thought that the pundits, um, the online bloggers, the analysts, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world. It's going to be a long week of
I
going
never
back and
thought
forth.
Stephen A. Smith would be mentioned on Tumble Home. This is an exciting day.
He might be the first time he's ever been mentioned, but it's
We
that
should call
time.
him up. He's probably bored silly. Maybe we could get him on the championship show.
Get him to yell.
We've never had a guest before, and
Oh,
it's going to be episode like 97. Stephen A. Smith joins us live from Studio K.
yep. Love to hear his thoughts on the juggernaut versus the somewhat unlikely matchup, but I think it does make sense, and there's going to be a lot of conversations going back and forth, a lot of analytics, the underlying numbers about how these
Yeah.
teams got to where they are. Maybe some some math involved this week that's really going to pick apart. At
Yeah.
the
What
end
do
of
the
the day,
metrics have to say about this?
yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait for the computer boys to come out and talk metrics for us, because I, for one, I might need a little bit of a rundown on how some of those numbers even work. Expected points for when Berkland's on the court, I know is exceptional, but it's one of those things that I might need a few more heat maps in my life to see, what this matchup is going to look like. But at the end of the day, some of those numbers don't matter. It's a game of inches, and looking forward to a week of conversation about how this one's going to go down.
Absolutely, Eric. We haven't really discussed any of the individual players on Team Kevlar Canoe. They're so strong top to bottom. I mean, some of their players off the bench could easily start for many of these other teams we had in the tournament.
Yeah.
But we haven't really discussed. They got their old coach. It's their old coach, Gelcoat.
Oh yeah, he's
Old
he's
Gelcoat. He always is famous for his antics on the bench,
yeah.
but he really recruits with the best of them. And I think we got to consult our friend on Reddit, user named C-Stroke. Had some interesting posts we've referenced in the past, kind of just side-by-side comparisons of some of the more popular Kevlar canoes. But, I mean, their quiver is deep.
Yes.
That canoe quiver is deep. I mean, old Coach Gelcoats, he knows his stuff, and he knows how to get the max performance out of those boats. Is there anybody else on the squad that really stands out to you, Eric?
Yeah, no, it definitely. We have been talking a lot about the coaches this week, and is it Gel or is it Gil Coates? I think it's just G Coates.
G Coates, yeah.
He was.
I don't really know how he pronounces it.
Yeah, he was. He's a player that from the '80s turned coach. Around
Right.
the turn of the '80s into the '90s there, and took
He's
over.
Kevlar to his core, but
Right.
a lot of these younger a lot of the younger players, they don't have that veneer and that
No.
toughness to them. Like that coach has seen some things.
Yeah, he sure has. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is you've got the twins. Every team, it seems like, has a pair of twins on it this year. But
That's the way it goes.
the Min twos up front, those are two towering. You'd be lucky as a team to get 2 6'6" down, right under the basket players like that. You'd be lucky to get one, and Kevlar Canoe has two down there in the Min two brothers. And they just, maybe that's one of the big reasons we saw such low point totals from all of the
Yeah.
other teams going forward, is they're under the basket, and unless you can drain those deep threes consistently, there's no in the paint under the basket, God forbid, no rebounding.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about facing up a team like Northern Lights. They can just kind of stand outside with their splendor and just rain it in.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very interesting in a lot of ways. And another canoe that's really been playing well, especially the last 2 weeks for Kevlar, is their point guard Prism. That Prism is a little tippy at times. It keeps you at the edge of your seat, but the speed, though, just slicing and dicing.
Yeah.
And then, with the assist totals, I mean, just feeding those bigger canoes down for the easy points in the paint. That kid can really play. I like Prism a lot.
Yeah, Prism, and the other point guard that they have, Magic, is
Yeah.
with a name like that, you just expect greatness, and it's a couple of John Stocktons out there, just no look passes. It's just crazy.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I can't wait to see what happens. I think we'll leave it at that for our Final Four coverage. And yeah, next week we will get to the championship matchup in Tumble Tourney, hashtag last tourney standing. We got a couple other items I'd like to get to while we're here recording and dressed up so nice.
Sure, why not?
I just wanted to give an idea out to people. If you're bored and you got any fruit in the freezer. I was digging through the freezer the other day, Eric, and I found half a pineapple. You know what I like to do with the pineapple? That's tapash.
Oh yeah.
So I got a batch going. Yeah, so here's how you do it. I'm going to give out the recipe in under 30 seconds. So cut up the fruit. Get yourself some old frozen fruit. Cut it up and put it in a bowl. Heat up a little pan of water and dissolve in some sugar into that. And then dump that in the fruit, and then maybe dump a little more cold water on top of it. And you want to leave a good inch or two on top of the bowl, like that. And then let it kind of cool down. And then you should, if you have fresh fruit, it'll have natural yeast, which is why the people like to do tapash with the pineapple. But if it's been frozen, you may have to just add a sprinkle like some sort of bread yeast or any active dry yeast in there. Once it's down to like room temperature, just cover that thing up and let it bubble for a few days. Strain it off. Add that mixture to a little beer. You got yourself a beautiful thing. Trust me, folks. You're going to want to get some tapash in your life.
Yeah, it is excellent to mix with beer. I've always enjoyed that. Not necessarily this time of year, but what else do you have to do?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect
sure
to have had access
summer.
to a pineapple right now, but I happen to have one. So I'm making, tapash. When life hands you a frozen pineapple, make tapash.
Make tapash. Yeah, I think a lot of people say that.
Also, we have to get our final... we have to get to the fantasy Iditarod final scores. We've never, they've all made it. There were some real issues at the end of that race, but that was the only other sporting event still going when we started the Tumble Tourney, and it has since ended. But I want to give a shout out to our top players in fantasy Iditarod. Eric, you never even got a squad together.
I didn't.
You took last.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Casper 507 is the victor in Tumble Home Pack.
Wow.
For the Fantasy Iditarod, and a score of 1,350. I'm sorry, 13,572 for Casper 507. Way to go. Ice Bear Andrew. Do you think that's Brother Andrew? I doubt it. I
really don't think he would give himself the
I don't think he'd give himself the name Ice Bear Andrew, but no. Ice Bear Andrew took second, and then Steve, who is he's been involved a little bit in our Tumble Tourney coverage on Reddit, I believe. Steve D.
Yes.
In there in third with 13,162, and yeah. That's we'll just end it with the top three. I didn't make the top three.
Dang.
I didn't have a very good year in fantasy Iditarod, but I was really happy to see Brent Sass get in the top five there. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, I don't know. This would if there was any year that I could have or should have gotten into it, it would be this year. But I don't know. I think at the time when it started, it was the potential for sitting inside for days on end wasn't quite as real, so I was just like, whatever. But
yeah, it was a crazy year. The last couple of teams kind of got stuck in Elam, and then
because of
a few
weather?
of them they had a crazy storm, and the sea ice got swamped, and a few people had to be lifted off the ice. Full teams had to be plucked off the ice with helicopters.
Jeez, so it wasn't.
And then the final 11 teams that were stuck in Elam, they had called them the Elam 11.
Wow.
They all had to take some bushwhacked overland route into White Mountain, and I believe they all mostly finished though, so they just were days behind everybody, but the banquet had already been canceled. Who cared?
Yeah.
So
yeah, once there's no banquet, whatever.
What's the rush?
Just
get there when you get there. There's plenty of dog food in Elam from what I've heard. Yeah, I have two more items. I'm not sure which order to do them into. How long is that sweet theme music? Can we cue up the theme music maybe, or
no, we can end on that.
Okay.
I feel like you've got more than how long that theme music is to go out on.
You know me, I'm long-winded.
Right, that's what I mean.
All right, should I give the stand? Do you want the stand update?
Yeah, let's hear the
Do the
stand update.
stand
And I've
update,
read
and then
this. It's
I have
been
one. I don't want to end on the stand update, but I promised I'm going to keep chugging away on the stand. I'm now 200 pages in or so. Stephen King's kind of a terrible writer. No,
yeah, I don't know. I feel
200 pages in, Eric. It's not good. The story itself is sort of interesting, like the overarching like plot of especially in these times, the idea of something like Captain Trips is it's so scary it makes like what we're facing like a little less scary, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Um, so that's kind of interesting. But now 200 pages in, it's like it's just not moving fast enough, which is I can see why it turned into a 1,500 page novel here.
Yes.
Literally in the last 100 pages, the only thing that happened was like literally 5 or 6 of the main characters slapped somebody. So apparently Stephen King has a thing for characters slapping one another around. I've noticed this. Literally every other chapter, somebody gets slapped. What's up with this?
I don't remember any that much slapping the last time I read it. I just
It's a
remember.
slap happy book for sure. Like there's too much slapping for my taste.
Hmm.
Like who slaps? When was this book even written?
80s, 90s?
Too long ago. Back in the day when it was okay to just slap people willy-nilly, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
What the heck? 1990?
Oh, wow.
78.
What?
The original
78?
copyright 78. I guess in
Wow.
the 70s you were just able to slap at will. It's ridiculous. His dialogue is just god awful.
Well, that's been a pretty.
It's cringeworthy, and I'm barely hanging on here right now, folks. If anybody can send a message of encouragement that it will get better, please do so. But I've heard from a few people that it doesn't get any better.
Right, for
and
one
it
of those
keeps
people.
dragging on.
Yeah, one of those people being me. Although I did give up, so maybe I'm not the best person to ask because I didn't get through the
Well,
second
I'm
half.
struggling because I keep trying to read it like at night just to get off the internet, and then I get the sleepy eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I don't know, guys. Anyways, the only other thing that happened in the last 100 pages is that like a couple people have had vivid dreams about a cornfield.
Oh yeah, now yeah, that's the one.
So they're all looking to like go to Kansas, I guess, eventually. I remember this from the mini series that I watched as a youth.
Yeah.
But I know they're all trying to get to this cornfield place eventually. So I did note that a couple of the main characters had vivid dreams of corn. That's all that's happened in the last 100 pages. So we'll see
Corn
if I keep
dreams.
going. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
And the last and final thing I wanted to discuss is a special treat for anybody that's hung around to the end of this episode.
Mm.
I had a lot of time on my hands lately. Anybody was on the video feed on this one.
Oh yeah, that stuff is starting to look good.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, I can see it. It's a little cardboard-ish paper, like Duluth pack that says BWC
it's a little
entry point
exact-
number 5.
This is entry point 5 for Tumble Home, the board game. It is a little tiny Duluth pack. I decided that when we make this for real, these should be made out of like canvas with little tiny leather straps even.
Oh yeah. We'll have somebody that we can do some prototype stuff with. We got a sewing machine downstairs, so.
Oh, good.
So
inside the pack are your key gear items. So we have a sleeping bag here, your paddle, your personal flotation device. This one's on a seat, it looks like, and then your canoe, which I know doesn't fit in a pack, but
yeah.
So this is just a little preview. I've been making a lot of progress on Tumble Home, the board game. So everybody starts out, you get assigned your pack with your entry permit and your key 4 pieces of gear. And then there's a lot more to it, obviously. But
are all of the packs, do they all include the 4 main pieces of equipment the same?
Yeah, so you got 5 packs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a max of 5 players, and so each pack has those key gear items in there, and then there's additional gear that you can draft, like at the beginning of Oregon Trail.
Ah, yes.
And then there's going to be a lot of map tiles, which have yet to be built. That's the next project for this afternoon, is going to start drawing those map tiles up. I've obviously done a lot of sketching and kind of have an idea of the ratios of water to land I'm looking for.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to incorporate elements of Oregon Trail, Ticket to Ride, and Carcassonne are like the main influences, but I think we've got a general framework in place right now, and I don't want to like jump the gun and promise, hey, I'll have it done in a year because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Obviously that didn't happen, but um,
I would
I
say
had a lot of
90.
time lately to do doodles. The only thing right now that's hindering production is I used up our glue stick.
Oh, no.
So I'm gonna have to get more glue stick to continue, but I can keep drawing. And then when I get the glue stick, I have these little pieces of plastic that a friend of the show, Adrian, gave me. And so they're all cut to 2.5-inch square tiles. And then it's got a nice feel to it. Just to get a production, like I just need to get a simple first version done so we can actually play test it.
Yes.
Although I don't know when we're ever going to be able to get together and play test this thing, but
I
you can
know.
play with 2 players. So Natalie and I are going to start hammering away at some test rounds just to see how the ratios are all working. But I'm very excited. This is very promising a couple weeks in the board game production front. So
Yeah, I just got the 3M from 1967 Hockey, the board game.
yes,
Pulled down from Clearwater, and unfortunately won't be able to get together to play that anytime soon. But
yeah, it's hard to play board games virtually.
yeah, you'd have to get like
Maybe I should have been working on Tumble Home, the video game.
wow, that would be depending on how this
Need
long this
just an app
lasts,
store.
you could learn some coding.
Tumble Home, the app.
Well, you'd have to get like an above, like from the ceiling, shooting straight down. Maybe you could run some cords from a GoPro and live stream through that, but that'd be really hard. Just strap up a laptop to the ceiling, and then you just have to trust whoever is like rolling dice or flipping cards. But there, if you had to have like your own private
Yeah, in
cards,
this game, there is a bit of a strategy where you can have multiple tiles in your hand at once, and then, it depends on if you're picking or playing tiles, and you don't necessarily want other people to know what you have currently in your pack.
yes,
So it really wouldn't work virtually unless we had some sort of, you'd have to build it all in code, which we're not going to do. So I don't know. By the time this quarantine is over, we're going to be playing this game, Eric.
wow, okay, well that's cool. I look forward to that.
I mean, I should have a prototype like first version done in a couple days. Like I said, I just need a glue stick and I'm done. So for sure, I'll have it kind of like a playable version ready by the next time you and I are able to be in the same room again.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm planning on going to a massive church gathering on Easter, so
Oh, well, yeah. Then
Yeah.
make sure you stop by my house right after that.
yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll tell you how it
Bring
went.
donuts.
I'll wear like a big burlap sack and make sure to shake myself off when I get in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's probably about it for our coverage of the last 2 rounds of the Tumble Tourney. Again, we started the show with many thanks. We're happy to still be here with you. We're looking forward to continuing it in the finals next week with probably some interviews that we'll be able to share, maybe a little bit more in-depth analysis from our point of view, because we will only have 2 teams to be talking to. But we look forward to your thoughts on the matter as well. It's been greatly appreciated. It's given much more life to the whole tournament. It's not. I remember last fall when we were talking about it. It was sort of a joke, and even when I remembered it in like mid-February at the time, I had no idea that it was going to become sort of a replacement for some people of like that binge of like tournament aspect and like brackets and stuff. And I know for myself personally, like I don't follow college basketball at all during the year, but when March Madness comes up, it's like, well, I'm going to watch that. And when that went down, it was just like, geez. And there's people that are way more into it than I am, and I was like kind of at a loss. So yeah,
it's kind of always a sign that like spring is on the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And get everybody together in this common thing that we all get excited about for no good reason. But it's always been there, so it's odd when it's not there.
Yeah, very odd. So unfortunately and fortunately, it's been an awesome thing that we've been able to continue doing. But unfortunately, it is ending next week. So I've got nothing going on for the next month, unless the ice goes out or something. I was out winter camping for about 5 days this last week, but conditions out there are kind of touch and go. Pretty rough travel. If you're going up for the day, it's fine, but like camping for that long in a spot where the snow starts melting, and especially if you have a wall tent and the edges, they are constantly needing to be reinforced with like really granular snow. So barring any huge weather changes, there will not necessarily be any open water paddling from me or anybody else for quite some time. So basically being long-winded about saying, if you have anything that you'd like to see us talk about, we've got a whole list of things regardless of being quarantined and having to record remotely that we can talk about. But send us a message. Let us know if there's anything. If you want us to try to do something like this again, maybe we can put together something like this again. Or if there are some really at-home people who want to take up the mantle of voting on favorite episodes, that'd be fun to see happen. But I don't think our opinions on it would be really good because, I have some of my favorites.
But voting then for sure.
Yeah. But we do have some things that we're looking forward to doing. There was a mention in that thread about some of the rivers that we've talked about in the past. I know, we usually do in the spring kind of like a top 10 episode, and I see us doing our top 10 like rivers that we have experience with. We're going to definitely be doing, especially because we do have hopeful plans that our spring trip will involve a river, a new one, that we won't know if we're going to be able to do or not necessarily. I imagine at some point this open water season will be able to, but so there are things that we've got planned that we will still be recording and putting out. I don't know if there's going to be any more video besides the conclusion of the Tumble Tourney, because I'm not a huge fan of putting on a suit. And if I'm not on video, there's no point in wearing one. So
I dress like this every day.
Yeah, always wearing the lapel.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I'm proud of my TSN status now.
You should be. Most of the coverage, the people have been furloughed at this point in lieu of no sports coverage. So that's why I'm essentially asking for anybody out there who has suggestions to keep us alive in the Tumble Home Sports Network, because after the final, the doors are probably going to be shut and locked for the foreseeable future when it comes to virtual tournaments.
We shall see. I would like to note too, before we get out of here, that a lot of this tournament coverage it helped unlock a lot of things in my mind as far as how the game should work, especially related to gear and like how important it is packing your pack and what gear you're going to bring or not bring. And so just a thank you to everybody who participated, because until this started, I was kind of at a roadblock as to how to proceed with the game. And now seeing, especially the way I thought about it, but then more importantly, how the actual people have voted to see, how important certain gear items are. That helped a lot into like seeing how that should be incorporated into the final gameplay. So,
yeah, no, for sure. I kind of got the sense of that too right away when we were talking about, you've got the Kevlar canoe, but if you don't have the paddle, does it matter? And,
right.
We didn't really think it so thoroughly through when it came to the tournament, but it definitely got the wheels turning in regards to the game itself. So,
right on. Alrighty, well, I think that does it for Tumble Home Sports Network. Coming to you virtually from the internet. My name has been Adam. Thank you, Eric, for being with us today from Studio V.
Thank you all.
Your shirt and tie combination are impeccable. Great job.
Yeah, I got the black on today.
And for Tumble Home, shout out to our patrons. Shout out to Coffee, Mimosas, and Two Hearted. This has been our Elite Eight and Final Four coverage of the Tumble Tourney 2020. And I think that about does it. May you enjoy the rest of your Sundays, dear friends.
Good night.
Can you turn that up? Is it like obnoxiously loud on your end?
No.
I can't hear it hardly at all. Can I turn it up here? There we go. Let's throw some more tiles off here. Good. Well, we need this one in there.
Ah.
That was a good book.
A good book.
Oh, this is a good one.
Ah, that's very
Camp
nice.
chair.
I like that. Ooh, party lights didn't even make the tourney.
Party.
I think cast irons is my favorite artwork.
Yeah, this is the last one.
Nice.
Well, there's more where those came from, but the sneak preview. Red card, baby.